in person a lot, but the virtual is really fun.
Okay. Yeah, it really
is.
So
we are connecting. We are now streaming live.
Okay, like streaming live?
It's possible. Yes, we are. Okay, I'm just gonna pull this up so that it's there and I can see people. Okay. So, hello, welcome to Escondido Public Library's virtual author chat series. This series is in partnership with Mysterious Galaxy Bookstore. I'm one of your hosts, Jessica.
Oh, I expected your last name, and I'm like, Jessica what?
I like to switch it up a little.
Okay. And I am Cathy, Teen Services Librarian. Today we are joined by author Rachel Griffin to talk about her debut novel, The Nature of Witches. Welcome, and thank you so much for joining us today. You can order The Nature of Witches from Mysterious Galaxy Bookstore. Links are going to be in the chat description. And if you have any questions for our author, please feel free to add those to the comments, and we will try to get to those within our time frame.
Yeah.
So let's get to the business. Yes, Dredge. Yeah. Okay. Whew. So, Rachel, first question, tell us about you. Tell us all about you. We want to know everything.
That's a big question. First of all, hi, thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be doing this with you. So I live in the Pacific Northwest. I absolutely love it here. I have lived here my entire life. And so I'm very partial to fog and wind and moody nature that you would think of, like when you think of the Twilight movies. And I just adore it here. So I live with my husband and a dog named Doppler. She's a schnoodle, very cute. She's really cute. Yeah, we spend lots of time in nature and drink lots of tea and do lots of reading.
That sounds awesome.
Yeah, it's really lovely. So I guess that's me in a nutshell.
And what was your journey to becoming a writer?
So it was a long one. So I've always loved writing ever since I was a little kid. I always wrote like poetry and short stories and songs. And I've just always been drawn to it. I think I realized at a young age that writing for me was my way of really processing how I felt about things in the world around me. And so I relied very heavily on it. I've journaled almost my whole life. And I just did it a lot. And then when I graduated high school, I, for whatever reason, did not think that writing had a place in my life anymore, I guess. So I went to school for something in the totally opposite direction and got my degree in diagnostic ultrasound, and then worked in healthcare for a long time and was just feeling really unfulfilled in my career. And so I asked myself, if I could do anything in the world, what would it be? And without hesitation, I knew and said I'd write. That's what I want to do. And so that day I got out my old laptop and I started writing. And that was about 10 years after I had, given it up. And it slowly but surely started filling me back up. And so I started seriously pursuing publication about 9 years ago, wrote lots of manuscripts, did contests and queried a lot, got hundreds of rejections. And then my debut novel came out a couple weeks ago.
That's the journey.
It's a good one. They're all really great.
Yeah, I think like everyone has their own path and their own journey, but I think perseverance tends to be, the common denominator among most of our journeys, I think.
Yeah, a lot of them so far, it's always like They always wrote when they were younger. Like it wasn't, you don't see it being a passion that people tend to pick up when they get older. It's always based in like how they felt when they were younger. So
yeah, I think
that.
a lot of us do like find our way back to it as adults.
Yeah. So let's see. We have two very, actually, do we know if the Mysterious Galaxy bookstore will be getting any signed book plates or anything like that?
I don't actually know. I can ask my publicist though.
Okay.
Yeah, I will ask my publicist as soon as we're done.
Excellent. Kristen wanted to know if there'd be signing the books or book plates. So
okay, perfect.
Yeah. And then Sarah is asked, what is your favorite tea and all that tea?
Oh my gosh. I have so many. So
top
I
three.
really, okay, top three. I'm gonna go general, like broad here. My favorite tea is probably an oolong tea. I like it. I get nauseous for some reason with really heavy dark teas, and so oolong tends to be like a really good pick me up. I also have been loving this honeybush nut crunch tea that is herbal. Ooh. And it's not caffeinated, and so I drink it every night before bed. So that'll be my second one. And then my third one is Ceylon, which is the kind of tea they use in Lipton tea bags. And I think it just kind of like takes me back to my youth. So I really love Ceylon tea as well. That's black tea.
Awesome. And then another quick question from Morgan. Since you live up there in the Pacific Northwest, what is your favorite Washington hike?
Oh my gosh, my favorite oh wow. Okay, there's so many to choose from. So if like for a quick hike that I don't have to think a lot about, I'm gonna go with Little Sigh. Little Sigh is just gorgeous the whole way through, and there are like these big cliff sides throughout part of it, and you can see people rock climbing, and then the view at the top is just wooded mountains. It's so beautiful. I mean, it doesn't take too long. If I want to spend a whole day hiking, then I'm going to go with Lake Serene, which is about 90 minutes out from Seattle, but it is this glacier lake in the mountains. Absolutely beautiful, like just awe-inspiring. So and that hike is longer and takes more time to get out to, but if you want to spend a whole day hiking, I think Lake Serene is my favorite.
Yeah, I love the ones with the lakes. They're the best.
I know, the glacier lakes, they're just and still now I've done so many of them, but every time I see one I'm like, wow, like, it's amazing. So I love them.
Thank you. I love when we have fun little questions like that.
I know, it's really fun.
So we're going to go with our next question, and then we're going to follow that up with another Facebook question. And then Morgan also says Bridal Veil.
Yes. Yeah, I also love
one
Bridal
that they
Veil.
like.
Yeah,
yes.
Bridal Veil is great. Yeah. Totally agree.
Well, let's see. What is it? Oh yeah. Tell us about Nature of Witches. Give us the business.
Yes. So the Nature of Witches, let's see, this is mirroring, so I'll go over here.
Okay.
So the Nature of Witches is a young adult contemporary fantasy that is set in a world where witches have long maintained the climate and they are starting to lose control of it. It follows Clara Densmore, who is an Everwitch. Her magic is tied to all 4 seasons, and she's the only witch powerful enough to stabilize the collapsing atmosphere. But her magic can target and go after the people she cares most about. And when she falls in love with a spring witch, she has to choose between this magic that the world desperately needs and this boy that she has come to love.
I love it.
And if anyone out there hasn't seen it, we just have to show off this amazing hardcover case because it is so, so beautiful. And that's on the whole first print run. But anyway, I always like to show the case just in case someone hasn't seen it because it's so pretty.
It's just all like the vibe. I just love the vibe. Oh.
Yeah, the whole package is just like they did such a beautiful job with it. I'm just so grateful to my team. They made, I feel like the whole thing an experience, you know, it's just so pretty. I'm really thankful.
Okay, let's see. So Facebook question there's some good business happening here. So let's see. What's her name? Katerina? I'm gonna go with yes, Katerina. Since you had
all the way
a
from
long
Norway.
Oh my gosh. Hello in Norwegian.
Oh, hi.
What time? It's like what, 8, 9 hours later there? Something like that.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah. So since you had a long journey to become an author and also have written a book with a complex and amazing theme, she says, how did you know that your book was done? How did it feel? How did it feel to end that journey?
Oh, so that's a great question. I think it's different for everyone. So basically, I started writing The Nature of Witches 4 years ago, and from the very beginning, I always had this sense that like this book felt special to me. I had written 2 other books previously and pursued publication, and had gotten as far as going on submission with the book before this one, and it didn't sell. But as soon as I started drafting this book, it did feel special to me, and I thought there was something there. And for me, I basically kept going with this book until I felt like there were not any other options. I felt like this book was special. I loved working on it. And so I tried to give it all of the opportunities that I could. And so in the past, when I've stopped pursuing going with a novel, it's been because I feel like I have hit all of the avenues that I want to try. And I think that the I want to try part is important, because I do think it's easy the longer you've been trying to kind of give up on your dream and seek out a different, like for me, I knew I wanted like the distribution of a traditional publisher, but towards the end I was like, well, maybe I should just put it on the internet. And but I knew deep down that like I wanted the support of a team behind me. And so I would shelve a book and start over and try and get that opportunity with the next one. The other way I've known it's time to shelve a project is when I'm not excited about it anymore and I don't have any clear vision for a revision for what would make the book stronger. So if I've exhausted opportunities and then I don't have any sense for what would make the book stronger or what would get me excited about it again, I will shelve a project. But I think with nature, I always felt like I had a different, like I pulled the book in the middle of querying because I had an idea for it that I thought would make it way stronger. And so I did a very big revision in the middle of querying to try and give my book an extra opportunity. And then it was that revision that got me my agent. And so I think just kind of, following the opportunities and if you don't have a clear vision for where the book needs to go after you've tried those opportunities, then I think that can be a clear indication that it's time to start on a new project. And then you never know, maybe you'll go back to it later. Maybe it'll be there, but for the time being, I think, starting a new project can be really beneficial.
Thank you. And thank you for asking that question. What's her name? Katerina? Is that what we believed? Thank you. So, okay. I got so excited when I saw your post on, I think, Twitter and Instagram when The Nature of Witches made, I think it was like the young adult hardcover bestseller. And I was just like, oh my gosh, I can't wait to talk to her about this. So like, how amazing after everything, all the years writing and working on it and then getting it published and then waiting for people to start reading it. Like, what was that feeling?
It was like indescribable. I feel like I'm still kind of pinching myself over it. Like I'm still kind of living in a dream. My editor and publicist called me together to tell me, and I like sunk to the floor in my kitchen, sobbing and like shrieking. They probably both had to like pull the phone away from their ears because I was kind of a mess. It was a really long journey. I racked up a lot of rejection along the way. And I've just been elated having this book out in the world and being able to share it with readers. And then on top of that, having it hit the list was just I don't even have the words. It's just been such an incredible few weeks, and the fact that people are resonating with Clara's story and giving her a home, it's just been like one of the greatest joys of my whole life.
Oh,
Don't cry.
Yes, I have been crying a lot over the past few weeks.
And we're going to get to your question, Sarah. I put it in our list. We're going to get to it after the next one. I just don't want you to think that we're forgetting. And it looks like I'm asking this one too. Okay. So what inspired you to write this particular story, and what were the challenges in bringing it to life?
Yeah, so my initial inspiration for this book was, I was thinking about the seasons. I really love nature. And I just thought, what if there were a girl who changed with the seasons? And that is what kicked off the entire story. Initially, I did not have a vision for witches and magic or things like that. It was really centered around this idea of a girl who would change with the seasons. And that really appealed to me because I'm someone who has a very obsessive personality. I go all in on my hobbies and interests, and then once they bore me, I move on to other hobbies and interests and then go all in on those. But ever since I've been a little kid, I've been told that I changed too much, and it's always been said as a bad thing. And so I wanted to write a story that showed change as an absolutely beautiful thing. And what better way to do that than set the story against the beauty of the changing seasons? And so that was really the inspiration and the idea for the book that sparked the whole thing. And then I think the most challenging part for me was figuring out the rest. Was I didn't get it right on the first try. Like the first few drafts of the book did not even include witches. They were people called seasonaries who had like special connections to the earth, but really no control over it or no magic. And so I think finding the right frame and backdrop for the story took me several tries. And then once I found that, everything kind of clicked.
And I want to read this comment from Katerina that it's midnight.
It's midnight.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, it's gotta be late.
There is a thunderstorm. So it's like the perfect, it says the perfect match to talking about this book.
Oh, that's so cool. Thank you for being here. And thunderstorms are my absolute favorite. I just love them.
Okay, let's see. Okay, now, Sarah, we're going to get to your other question. This is actually a question that we a lot of the times will ask because it's a good one. So can you talk about your writing process? Do you plot or do you just start writing? Do you outline?
Yes. Stop me if I go on for too long because I love talking about the writing process. I am a very intense plotter. I am completely amazed by pantsers who can just sit down and write. I cannot do that. I've tried and it does not work for me. So I'm a very intense plotter. I outline a book before I ever sit down to write it. I start with a beat sheet. I use the Save the Cat beat sheet for everything I write. I think it's a fantastic tool. I highly recommend looking it up if you haven't tried it. And then once I have the solid story beats down, I then create a very comprehensive chapter by chapter outline. So by the time I sit down to draft a book, I have already outlined the book in its entirety. Worth noting that outline certainly changes as I start writing, and my characters decide to do things that I did not account for, didn't foresee, and so it does change. It's like a living document. It changes a lot, but I don't like to sit down and not know what I'm writing that day. I like having a roadmap and I like knowing what I'm going to be working on. So that's how I do it. Drafting is my least favorite part of the process. And so my whole drafting process is kind of in service of getting me through that phase as quickly as possible. So I do not edit as I go at all. I do not reread what I've done. I don't edit. If I decide that I don't like a character, I'll just stop including them in the book and fix it in revisions. If I decide I want to add in like a new intense subplot, I will not go and work it in the first part of the book. I'll just start writing with it, assuming it's been there all along, because that gets me through that process as quickly as possible. And then it's on to the fun part for me, which is revising.
Do you want me to ask the next Facebook question?
Sure.
Let's do it. Let's do it. I was just trying to think, okay. I was like, do we have any other questions about whether you're a pantser or a plotter? Because you just answered it, but we're good. So this Facebook question is from Kristen. Thank you so much. What was the strangest topic you researched while writing this book?
Let's see, strangest topic. So the most of my research around this book involved weather. So it was all weather related things. So I definitely learned about weather phenomena that I did not know of previous to this book, and got to see some like really cool photos of different weather events that can take place. I think probably the strangest or strange, cool, I don't know. When I decided to include a solar eclipse in the book, I read this book on eclipses and read all about how different cultures over the years, what they had come up with from like their mythology, what they thought an eclipse was representing. It was almost always meant as like a bad omen, and they thought that, you know, the gods or the universe was upset with them and punishing them. And it was just really interesting to read before we knew what eclipses were, the kind of like mythologies that cultures had developed around explaining what eclipses were. So I think that was probably the most like fun part, because I wasn't actually anticipating reading that. It just came up when I was reading a book about eclipses. So
that sounds really interesting, actually.
It was really cool to read about.
What this book is.
They do that sometimes in movies when they go back in time and they're like, they know an eclipse is happening, or they pretend that they're like a wizard or something.
Yes.
They know the eclipse is happening, and so they're like, the sun, and then they totally believe it.
Yeah, you definitely have a leg up if you're in an area and you know what an eclipse is and that it's coming, and the other people don't, because then you can like predict it and say that you're, you know, have some divine knowledge or whatever. But that's happened too. So it's really interesting reading about the histories of them.
Okay, let's see, nothing else. Okay, so in the nature of witches, witches influence the climate and their magic is tied to a season. What was your process for creating this magic system? Did you have it figured out from the beginning, or did it evolve as you wrote the story?
It definitely evolved as I wrote the story. I did not have it figured out in the beginning. Like I said, witches and magic were not a huge part of the story in the first draft of it. And so this actually, the magic system is probably what came latest in the book. I had done a big revision and changed the book to where it was witches who had control over the weather, but they didn't have separate magic systems per the seasons. And I had been thinking a lot about it, and honestly, I had kind of been lazy about it because I knew that would be better for the story. And I was like, oh, it seems like so much work. I don't want to have to do it. But finally, I knew that that's what the book needed. And so I ended up developing a separate magic system for each of the seasons. And that was honestly some of the most fun I had working on this book, because I was basically walking around with a notebook just dreaming up, if Winter were a person, what kind of personality traits do I think that Winter would have? If I could turn Winter up to 11 and experience magic from that season, what would it feel like? And it was really cool figuring out, you know, each of those qualities for the seasons, and then how would they differ from the other ones. And so it was this fun way to kind of personify the seasons and figure out, you know, what would magic feel like? What would witches exhibit if they really resonated with that season, if they were connected to it in some way? And that became really, really fun for me. So I had this like magic system Bible of winter, autumn, spring, and summer. And I just wrote down every little thought I had about the seasons and then built magic around it.
That is very cool. It's always interesting, but especially with any books that have like magic or any fantasy, to figure out how the authors came up with all of that, because we read it and we watch it and we get to see the end and we don't know how much work put into making it something that we can actually follow.
Yeah, it was fun. And this was the first book I wrote that actually had a magic system. And so I definitely had to work at it. It was something that I did several drafts of to try and get it right, because world building with a magic system in place was just not something I had done before. And my first crack at it felt very info dumpy. Like I didn't know initially how to write a first draft without being like, let me turn to the camera and explain to you exactly how this is happening. So it definitely took a little bit for me to feel like I got it right.
So in terms of the stories that you like to read or you like to watch or experience, are you drawn to stories like your book, stories about nature, magic, and the paranormal, or is your book very different from what you actually like to read and watch?
No, I love paranormal stuff. I love vampires. The Vampire Diaries is pretty much my favorite show. And I absolutely loved Twilight. I want vampires to make a comeback. I'm ready. And I love witches. There's so many witchy books that I love, from practical magic to YA titles like The Wicked Deep. So I love magic, and I love thinking about magical things in the world that we live in. It's just always been really fun for me. And so I've definitely always been gravitated toward that. And I actually think that's one of the reasons why this book ended up being the book that I was able to get published with, because I just really leaned into all of the things that I really love with this book. Where my first two, I think I was scared to like embrace the things that I love, thinking, what if nobody else thinks weather is cool? You know, what if nobody else is into the same things I am? And once I leaned into those things and embraced them, I think it really did make my writing a lot stronger.
Let's see. Okay. Ooh, how did you come up with the concept of the Everwitch?
So the Everwitch really stemmed from the initial idea that I wanted there to be a girl who changed with the seasons. And so in the nature of witches, all of the other witches are born on an equinox or solstice, and then they have the power of that season that they're born into. And then they do not have magic from the other seasons. And so I knew I wanted there to be a girl who changed with the seasons. And so it made sense to have her magic change with the seasons and have her power and who she is be tied to all 4 seasons, as opposed to just one of them like her peers. So that's really where the idea came from.
Okay, we have so many Facebook questions. They just keep popping up. I'm trying to keep up with them.
It's like, no.
So this is another question from Katerina. Sarah, we will get to your question, don't worry. But first, Katerina, how, when, and where do you prefer to write?
How, when, and where? I am a creature of habit. So I like to write at home. I write here. This is my office. And I am a night owl, and I have tried to make myself not this way. I have tried to become a morning person and feel creative in the morning, and that is not something that I excel at. So I work when I'm on deadline and when I need to be working a lot. I probably do not start creative work until the afternoon. So most days I get up around 9 or 10. I have a long leisurely coffee, and then I do admin type work. So I go through my emails, or I schedule events, or I, post on Instagram. And then it's not until like 2 o'clock in the afternoon that I actually feel creative and start working. And then once I start working, I light a candle. Everything goes on quiet hours. I block the internet and I work. And then if I'm on deadline and I have a lot to do, then I work at night after dinner. I'm very creative around like 9 p.m. and will routinely work until 1 or 2 in the morning if I'm on deadline. I prefer not to do that. As I've gotten older, I get a lot groggier now if I'm staying up that late. But that just is when my brain likes to be in the story. So that's when I work. I have a very hard time working in coffee shops. I get or anywhere that's noisy. I get easily distracted. I look up every time the door opens or someone talks. Yeah, exactly. It's impossible for me to get work done. So I'm definitely a creature of habit. I like to be at home in my space where it's quiet, and I can choose the music and close the door and just kind of immerse myself in it.
And that is
So
perfect.
Kristen asked
Yes.
another question about if you have a writing ritual, but I think you just answered that by taking us through everything that has to happen before you start writing. So that was
Yes.
perfect. Okay. So another question before we get to more of the Facebook questions. What is the most rewarding part of the writing process?
Okay. The most rewarding part of the writing process for me is revision, because I love seeing a book get stronger and get closer to the vision that I have for it in my head. My first drafts are, I feel like the first draft is when I'm telling myself the story, and then my revision is when I'm getting it ready to tell other people the story. And so that is when I get to clean it up, and I get to, focus on language and really go deeper with my characters and the themes of the book. Because when I'm writing a first draft, for me, like, I do not go into a first draft knowing all of the ins and outs of my characters and the themes. A lot of times I don't know what I'm writing about truly with the first draft, and I figure it out as I go. And so the first draft, I'm getting to know these characters. I'm getting to know what they're afraid of and what makes them tick. And then in the revision is when I get to really like hone in on those themes and go deeper with them. And so I just really love that part of the process of deepening the story, like making it this living, breathing thing and building it up. So my first drafts are very lean, they're very short. And then the revision is all about giving the story room to breathe and going deeper with everything. And I just find it very rewarding seeing a book get stronger as I revise it. I think that it's very cool to know that, like, right now I'm revising my next book, and it's cool knowing that by my deadline, the book is hopefully, if I've done a good job, it's going to be better than it is right now. That's exciting to me. So I really love the revision stage.
That's so interesting to hear, because usually, or at least a lot of the authors we've talked to before, after the first draft, they have to get rid of thousands and thousands and thousands of words because it's too big. But I like that you start out with like the bare bones, and then we had everything figured out, and then you can start adding in and making it fluffier and like
yeah. And it's cool how we all like have different writing processes, right? Like, so my revision, I have a lot of friends who, they'll write this, 120,000 word first draft, and I'm like, I have never written a book that long. Like, that's like 2.5 of my first drafts put together. And so like on the revision I'm doing now, I'll probably add a solid 25,000 words to the book but I don't know it when I'm first drafting it, so I don't add in details because I don't know what they are yet.
Mm-hmm. I like it. It's almost like an outline, but a more detailed outline.
Yes, exactly.
Let's see. Ooh, and so now we're going to get to Sarah's other question. Can you talk about how things went between having your manuscript accepted and having a finished book ready to publish?
Yeah, so I assume like having it accepted, like by having my publisher buy it, and then to publication, I think is how I'm going to interpret the question. So it was a really cool experience. I didn't know what to expect. And so my book sold, and I didn't really get my edit letter for probably 4 months after my book sold. So for the first 4 months, I wasn't really talking with my publisher. I wasn't really doing anything. I was working on the next book. And then I got my first edit letter, and it was very collaborative. My editor and I talked on the phone a lot. We tossed ideas back and forth a lot. And it was a very collaborative, really fun process. And so for me, we did 2 rounds of big developmental edits. And then we did copy edits, which are really sentence and line level edits that really polish the book. And that was really fun for me. I have friends who like either hate copy edits or love them. I really loved them. It was really cool seeing how just deleting one word or rearranging a couple can make a sentence so much stronger. So we did line edits, and then the book goes out in what are called ARCs, advanced reader copies. And so that's for like early reviewers, librarians and booksellers and bloggers to read early copies of the book. And then we did a proof, the book was proofread, so did one final edit on it. And then that is what became the final book that is out in the world now. So there are still several stages of revision and work on the book after it sells.
It's just so amazing how much goes into making little books.
It's so funny. I got my edit letter for my next book this week, and I turned to my husband and I was just like, writing books is so much work. Like the end product is so rewarding, but every time I start another book, I'm like, it's a lot of work.
Okay, we have another question from Kristen. Right? Yes, okay, I didn't skip one. Did any authors inspire you to be a writer?
Yes, and I would say that it didn't happen until I was later in life. When I was younger, I've always been a reader, but I didn't have like, other than Judy Blume, I would say. I didn't like, YA wasn't really a thing so much when I was a kid. And so it wasn't until my early 20s that I started reading and kind of devouring YA and really clicking with it as a category. And I have to shout out Twilight, because it was the first book I read that I really felt like it made me think, oh, I could be an author. I can center emotions and feelings of like a teenage experience and pull in magic and write about the things that I love and have it be an incredible story and share it with teens. I really love YA as a category because I feel like when you're a teen, your emotions are so big. They're so big. And I like writing in that space where everything feels so big and where you're still like, the world hasn't yet told you how you're supposed to deal with your feelings. You get to you feel them. And I like writing in that space. And so Twilight, I felt, was the first book I had read that really like centered these big feelings. And then as I started reading more in the genre, I just kept falling in love with all of these stories that had paranormal was my first big love, and dystopian. I was the paranormal dystopian girl. I loved all of it. I read all of it. And then more recently, books that I have really loved that spoke to me are Uprooted by Naomi Novik, really because of the way it's so good. It's so good. And I read that book and the way magic was tied in with the real, like with the natural world, just completely blew me away. And it was, even though the forest was dark and ominous, it was so beautiful. And it really, I think, made me feel empowered to lean into like my love of nature and the natural world. And then The Wicked Deep by Shay Earnshaw was another one, this witchy, beautiful YA story that also felt very atmospheric and tied in her love of nature. And that one is set on the Oregon coast. And so I think I just felt like, oh, there's space for me, like, and for my love of the weather and moody nature and magic, and those books really made me feel like I like that I could lean into the things that I absolutely love, and that there would be people there who also love those things and wanted to read about them.
Thank you, Kristen, for that question.
Ooh,
I love the answer. I love Uprooted so much.
It's so good. It's just
Spinning
so
Silver.
good.
Oh my gosh.
I'm actually reading Spinning Silver for the first time and very excited.
It's magical. It's magical.
Yeah, I'm very
excited. It's perfect right now because it's really warm here and I want it to be cold. So I'm like, I'm going to read books that's cold.
Ooh, this is a fun one. I like this question. So Robin asks, what season do you think you would be if you were a witch in the world of this novel?
I love this question. So I was actually, so in this world, you are born a witch if you're born on the equinox or solstice. And I was actually born on the vernal equinox, the spring equinox. And so in this world, I would actually be a spring witch. So I'm going to go with spring. And I'm sure because of that, spring's got a lot of qualities that I resonate with. Springs are empathetic. They're very hopeful and optimistic by nature. And they also have a tendency to sit in their negative feelings and need help sometimes getting out of the spiral. Like they're just comfortable with negative feelings. And I thought that mix of being comfortable with thinking about the negative things in your world and also being really hopeful and optimistic felt like a really good traits for spring, because spring comes after winter. And so a lot of it is you are still experiencing some severe weather. It's still quite cold. You have lots of rain, but then as the season goes on, color starts coming back. You start noticing blooms in your garden that weren't there, and the earth starts waking up again. And so it does really feel like this season that is on one end really touched by quietness and solitude and kind of this melancholy of the earth sleeping, and then of the other side of it, of this hopeful and optimistic excitement over things waking back up again.
I just looked up because I was like, oh, maybe my birthday fell on one. No, but it was super close. Like, oh, darn it. I wish there was a quiz.
There might be. Maybe
someone out
soon.
In the world make one. Ooh, Kristen says, love Spinning Silver and Uprooted, and recommends Baron and the Nightingale series by Catherine Arden. And I also recommend it because it is so good.
I actually just picked up the first book in that series, and it's going to be like a reward for me when I finish my revision, because I know I will not want to stop reading it. And so I can't do it while I'm on deadline. I have to wait.
Oh, man.
I love them so much. I actually went Mysterious Galaxy, maybe a year or two ago. No, probably 3 years ago. Had Catherine Arden there for a signing. And I bought the last one, and then I was like, you know what? I'm just going to buy all the other ones again. So I bought all of them so she could sign them all. So now I have multiple copies.
I mean, the signed copy really is special.
So we have another Facebook question.
Yes.
Another Facebook. So I just want to really quickly thank everyone who is watching from everywhere, because we have Katerina, who's in the thunderstorm in a different country. We have Sarah, who's in Cuba, Kristen in New Jersey, and everyone else who I can't see. So we just have everyone from everywhere.
That's
together.
What's so cool about virtual events. I love it. It's so cool being able to do an event and have people show up from all over the world that, obviously wouldn't be able to do it if the event is held in person. So I think having virtual events have been really special in that way.
Oh, and Robin's from Canada. Oh, she's so excited.
You're having too much fun. Okay, so another Facebook question from Sarah. Man, you guys are just hitting it out of the park. Can you talk about developing the characters of Sang and Paige?
Yes. So I knew as soon as like Clara came fully formed to me, I knew that Clara had a relationship in her past that she was not over, and that she had hurt someone, and it was something that she had not forgiven herself for, and that still played a very active role in her life. And so as soon as I started drafting, I knew that there was going to be this person. And Paige just kind of came to me. Paige just being this very strong, assertive, confident winter witch who really wouldn't take any of Clara's woe is me stuff, wouldn't let Clara devolve into self-pity, and would really, really challenge her. And sometimes challenge her more than she could handle at the time. And so Paige was always Paige has probably been the character, I don't know if she's the character that's changed the least, but like I've had just, Paige came to me very, very fully formed. I wanted this girl who would not let, who would challenge Clara, and who would not let her wallow in her and oh, I've hurt other people and stuff. I wanted someone to call her on the pain that she has caused and make her confront those things. And Paige was just the perfect person to do it. And I have a huge soft spot for Paige as a character. Sang, on the other hand, I thought that for someone like Clara, who changes a lot and is afraid, Clara at her core is afraid of being too much. She is afraid of being too sensitive, too powerful, too strong, too in her head. And I think she needed this like gentle presence to gently remind her of her strengths and these qualities in her that make her who she is and make her special, but didn't push her beyond what she was able to handle at the time. And so that character came to me in the form of this sweet botanist boy who loves plants and has this deep reverence for the earth, and helps Clara embrace every part of who she is. And I wanted him to do it in a way that was gentle yet challenging, because I think a lot of times we see pictures of kind of brute force and really intense challenges, but there's also a lot of strength and gentleness. And I wanted to show that that gentle strength can also be something that we embrace, and that can also be this really great quality that does bring about change and growth and things like that.
Where's my window? Sometimes I lose my window. Let's see. Okay. Oh my gosh. People from everywhere. Let's see. Anything else happening?
We're a little bit over, but we're just going to do our final questions.
Okay. Really, do you want me to move? Do you want me to keep going with number 18?
Yeah.
Yes? Okay. What do you hope readers take away from your book?
Oh, that's a great, my last answer was a great segue to this. So there are two things. And the first is kind of what I was just talking about, that Clara's journey is about, really at its heart, finding these qualities in ourselves that other people have told us are negatives. We change too much. She's too sensitive, too in her head, things like that. And embracing those things and feeling empowered to change our perception of those things, and maybe start thinking of these qualities that we have as strengths, even if others or society have told us that they are weaknesses. I too am a very, very sensitive person. I've been that way my whole life. I was in 5th grade when a teacher pulled me aside and told me that I would never make it in this world if I couldn't develop a thicker skin because I was too sensitive. And while I'm 36 and I'm still just as sensitive now, I have not developed a thicker skin at all. And I'm doing all right. So I think that this I would love it if Clara's story helped people to embrace those parts of themselves and see them as strengths and see them as beautiful. And then the other thing, of course, is that at its heart, this book is a love letter to the earth. I tried to write in all of the wonder and love and gratitude I feel for the natural world into the pages of this book. And I hope that by reading it, it will help other people feel that sense of wonder and awe and love, because I think when we feel those things, when we're inspired by something and when we're grateful for it, we want to protect it. And this is the only home that we have.
Yeah, I think you absolutely succeeded, because I wish I would have had this when I was younger, because I completely connected with all the characters. And I had the same thing a teacher told me when I was in junior high, that I needed to develop calluses on like my personality.
It's yeah, it's so, and the thing that just bothers me so, it's like, it's who you are. It's ingrained in it. Like telling someone to be less sensitive is like telling someone not to breathe, or like it doesn't make any sense. How do you, anyway, I'm so sorry that someone said that to you. And I wish that wasn't, that sensitivity was not seen as something that is anything less than a strength.
Yes, Sarah says the emotions were written so beautifully. I got teary several times.
Thank you.
Thanks, Sarah. Same. Okay, so our final question and then our closing question. So what is your favorite library memory?
Okay, so I was definitely the kid who was more excited to get my library card than I was to get my driver's license. I was very excited about it. Libraries, I grew up in a family, like my parents are quite introverted. They'd have like, and my sister is as well, or extroverted, I mean, and my sister is as well, and they'd have like family movie nights, and I would just kind of hole up in my room night after night and read by myself. And I'd always just kind of viewed myself, I guess, as like kind of on an island. And libraries are, when I discovered my public library, it felt like coming home. Like there were other people who love books and who want to be in this big room, but like be quiet and be reading. Like it made me feel seen and understood. And I think that that's probably, when I think about libraries, the thing that comes to my mind the most is that they made me feel understood, and that there were like other people in the world who were that way. When I was extremely introverted as a kid, I always wanted to be reading kind of more than anything else. You know, I'd have friends ask to get together after school, and I'd be 9 years old and be like, I'm sorry, I have a book I need to get back to. And so libraries just were my place where I felt like my people were there.
Oh.
So thank you for everything that you do.
We are your people.
As librarians. I know.
Okay, so our closing question, and one of our viewers asked this earlier when you were talking about your acceptance letter doohickey thing.
Mm-hmm.
Can't think of the word. So tell us about your next project, or as
yes,
much as you can.
Yeah, unfortunately, we haven't like shared anything about it yet. So I'm not allowed to, I think, say too much, but it is another contemporary fantasy. It is coming out next spring. It is witchy. There is magic, and there is a romance that's very front and center in the story, and it takes place in the Pacific Northwest. And so I feel like if the nature of witches is my love letter to the earth, that this next book is my love letter to the Pacific Northwest. And I have had a lot of fun writing it, and I hope that people are excited about it.
Well, I'm excited already.
Thank you. Yeah, it'll be, I think, better once I can actually say what it's about. But I'm excited, and I can't wait to start talking about it.
Yes, we will be looking forward to seeing when things start getting posted. Yay! Okay, that's the end of our questions. Thank you to everyone who asked questions. I'm just going to say everyone's names. Sarah, Kristen, Robin, Morgan, Katerina. I think that's everyone. You guys asked so many questions and so many great questions. Thank you all. And thank you so much to Rachel for joining us and spending time with us and talking about your book and your experiences and everything witchy and wonderful.
Thank you so much for having me. This was so great, and thank you to everyone for attending and asking such great questions. This was a really fun chat.
Yes, and everyone watching now or later, if you're interested in more free online programs and events, don't forget to check out our Facebook calendar and our website to see everything that we have planned. Our next chat will be next week, June 24th at 3 p.m. It'll be a fantasy panel with authors Rosalind Breyer, Catherine Forrester, and Lizelle Stanbury. And if you get a chance, please, please, please fill out our very short, very quick, very sweet event survey. It's in the chat description. I just pasted it in the comments. Let us know if you enjoyed this chat and if you want to see more events like this at the library. And yeah, thank you again to Rachel for being here. I can't wait to find out about your next book. So I hope that it's soon, but we will be patient and we will wait.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for having me. This was great.
Okay, well, I'm going to say goodbye to everyone that's watching. Have a good night.
Bye.